Hello and welcome to this episode of The Shift, where we take time to celebrate our women heroes who are taking strides in their various industries. Today in studio, I'm joined by Ammara Brown, who's going to share with us her story, and I know that you're going to be inspired. This month of March, we are taking time to celebrate women, and we are saying that gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. And I'd like to thank you, Ammara, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's quite a pleasure to have you. We always see you on TV, doing your act, and we're privileged and humbled to have you.
Oh, bless you.
Show The Shift.
Bless you.
As we start, Amara, I know maybe you have shared your story before, but for the benefit of the viewers watching today, can you kindly share with us, how did you start your career, your music career?
Oh, I think it started when I was born. Or probably when I was still in the womb. There was always a lot of music around me. So I think just in that regard, I was very blessed and privileged in that way. My father was a musician. I was surrounded by aunts and uncles who were playing music around all the time. And my mother was very supportive of that. She was like the backbone of the family. And so even when they divorced, the nurturing of my natural, I want to say passion, because I couldn't help but be moved and inspired by music all the time. And so the environment from the time I was 4 years old, I wanted to be on stage, the school plays, the choirs, any and every excuse. And so by the time I was 9, I believe, I was in my first advert with Uncle Tuku, God rest his soul. And from then, I just remember being super excited about the prospects of becoming an entertainer and a performer. I loved being on set. I loved just the energies and all the creatives flying around me and that kind of thing. And I want to say when I was 12, I got my first solo. And I ran home. I was so excited because I had auditioned and I was like, Mom, I got my first solo. And she was like, oh, that's so great. I was like, no, but that's not everything. I want to be a singer. And she's just like, you want to be a singer? I was like, for the rest of my life, that's what I want to do, because I felt so free. I remember just that feeling of just like feeling like I was on top of the world and like nothing could possibly contain that energy that I was experiencing in that moment. So my mother made sure I went into the studio. We were in the States at the time. She put me in a studio. She sacrificed her hard-earned money. We're going to record you and get you to perform and record it and listen back to yourself and learn that. And I remember sending the demo back to Zimbabwe, and my dad was just like in tears. He was so proud and so excited. I sounded terrible in my opinion, but he didn't care. He could hear the musicality behind everything. It wasn't perfect, but I was growing and I was learning. I know that when I was 8, my dad and Chioniso gifted me with my first mbira. So my father had this concept of a vocalist being able to play an instrument was something that was very important. And so when I got back to Zimbabwe at the age of 14, I was working behind him as a backing vocalist. And I want to call that the boot camp, because the hours that Zimbabwean musicians have are like from, 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. in the morning. So where others were going to the movies and hanging out with their friends, I was at work. Yeah.
On that, Amara. A lot of women have cried to say we don't have opportunities. Men are dominating all the industries. You've shared your story from 4 years. Now 14, you're performing on a stage. What would you say to women who also want to start in the same industry and they're waiting to say someone is going to call me for auditions or something like that?
Nobody's going to call you. You have to want it. You bang down that door. There were so many things that happened to me from the time I was like 22. I was pregnant, I was a single mom, and very soon I was about to lose both of my parents. The comfort of even just knowing there's 2 people in the world that have my back was stripped away from me immediately after becoming a new mom. And so whether I made $20 or $10 or $50 at the book cafe, I was performing and I was pushing to propel myself forward. And it wasn't as simple as people think it is. You want to say like, oh, well, she was Andy Brown's daughter. That must have been like really easy. And actually, no, because when my father was in the industry, he had friends and he had foes as well. And he had created his own footprint. It doesn't give you the right to just own the footprint because you're not him. I was never meant to be him, and I was not meant to be the female version of him. I can only be who I am. And I knew that at the time. So I constantly had to battle with the idea of who he was and who people thought I should be, whilst trying to figure out who I was as a musician and break down all these barriers that people were saying, oh, well, corporates won't do this, or these companies don't do that. Even the way that I dressed, you know, all the female musicians were wearing these long dresses. I'm like, I can't dance in that. Like, I need to be able to move, because my essence as a musician, as a creative, was different. My approach with corporates and my ideas in terms of what I wanted to see the relationship between the corporate industry and the artist industry was still all in my head, and the fabric of how things were being navigated were and still are very challenging, but we have managed to push through as a unit. I want to say not just myself, I want to say there's tons and tons of women at this point who are in their own departments, whether she's a bassist, whether she's a sound engineer, whether she's a camera woman. There's a camera woman right behind this camera right now, okay? We're all pushing, and we're doing it as a unit as we constantly go back and forth and encourage and inspire each other. It's like a cycle, you know?
Being a daughter of a star like Andy Brown, was that not an advantage? Like you mentioned that it had nothing to do with your career, but someone who's listening to you now, when you go to an audition, maybe when you say you are Ammara Brown, was that not an advantage?
Okay, you can be anybody's child, but if you can't deliver, you can't deliver. You know what I mean? And it's like my dad had 10 children. Each of us had our own passions of what we wanted to do in the world. It's not like I could get on a stage in front of 10,000 people and just stand there and put a poster and say, Andy Brown's daughter. So just please applaud for me, make some noise, because that's all there is to it. You can't sit there and perform your father's music for 3 hours. Like, who are you? Who are you? And I had to get the people to learn to love who I am as an individual and what creative artistry I had to bring to the table. You know, I will never negate the fact that my father's boot camp was of utmost importance, and the inspiration that he gave years and years and years over, and even after he's gone, I still feel it today. But when it came to the audience, they would say, oh yeah, oh that's Andy's daughter, okay, so how far? And they'd still have to sit in the audience to see, can she perform? Can she sing? Do I even want to listen to her song? You still had to earn that, and you had to work harder because of the standard of who my father was. Do you get what I'm saying? So it came with the benefit of the interest, but it didn't give you the seal of approval.
You shared when you're 14.
Yeah.
That's when you were kickstarting. Share with us from then, how did you become where you are today?
Oh my God. 10,000 hours, if I am to put it in a nutshell. I remember spending the better part of my teenagehood learning just to sharpen my skills as a performer, learning what it's like to perform with a live band. That's its own beast. The work ethic, the discipline that I needed in order to deliver for hours and hours and hours on end and still smile, even though you're sweating and you're tired and everything hurts. And then I remember when I got to Joburg, I think I was 17, both of my parents couldn't afford for me to finish writing my Cambridge exams. And my mother said, you know, come to Joburg. My dad said, let's go to Joburg. We were on tour. So I didn't finish O-level. And my mom said, we're going to put you in varsity, don't worry. One way or another, you're going to get into varsity. And here's the funny thing that I remember. It's like, I think I spent about a year. I had a gap year, not knowing where my life was going and what was happening, because things were really real. My mother had just had her 4th child. She had just left the UK. The business had broken down in Zimbabwe. Everything was just a mess. And I think that's probably part of the misconception of middle-class people that, you know, you must have been fine the entire time. No, we were not fine. My mother was cooking sadza for mabirida. You know what I'm saying? Like on a normal day, in order to make sure we had food on the table. And I remember her first job when she got it. She got her first paycheck. And I cried because I remember her paycheck was like 5,000 Rand and my demo cost 4,000 Rand. And within 2 months, my mother put me in studio. And she sacrificed that to make sure that I would start being able to look for a record deal. I got my first record deal at the age of 18. And I thought it was such a huge achievement because it was Gallo Records, it was an American company. Oh my God, I think I've made it, have I? But there was something in my spirit that was saying something's not right. And my mom and my dad were so proud. I didn't want to say something doesn't feel right. And soon I would discover that they would shelf me because they wanted me to be like a Britney Spears type pop artist. And I knew that's not who I was. And so I want to say a year later, I'd gotten into college. At this point, I started studying. I became an honor student. I was a beast. And a year later, my mother said, we're taking you out of school. We're canceling your contract. And now my mom said, we're canceling your contract. Also, I thought that was the worst idea. I thought she was giving up on me. I couldn't understand, what are you doing? And she wanted me to go to Idols. So she said, we are going to drive to Botswana. You've missed the Zimbabwe auditions. It was a SADC, in fact, East and Southern Africa, actually. It was 7-country search. And my mom said, we're going to Botswana. We're going to hit the road and just risk everything to see if you're going to make it on Idols. And I thought she was crazy. But she was right, because I was completely camera shy. I was so scared. I remember like literally shaking. I didn't know that I was going to make it, but I knew that I could sing, and I wanted to deliver, so I gave it my everything. And in no time, I was in Kenya. I was performing in front of millions of people across the continent. And yeah, I was crapping bricks at that point because it was really scary. I was only 19 years old.
Share with us the 18-year-old Amara on stage at Idols. How was your experience? There might be young people listening to us today and they have an opportunity. How did you grab that opportunity and, perform so well?
I remember 19-year-old Amara being petrified. I remember my first top 10 performance. There were about 1,000 people outside screaming. And I was completely camera shy. I just remember being so afraid. Just afraid. But I think nerves are good. Nerves are good because they push you. That's something I learned about myself. My stress levels at some point, because I started to also experience, social media pressure and things like that. They thought I was Kenyan. Some people thought, maybe she's Nigerian. I don't know. There was just all kinds of things flying around. And my stress levels, I'd never been away from home, away from everyone I loved for so long. It was like 3 or 4 months away from home. And it was depressing. I got into a depressive state, actually, because the pressure was so extreme. And I remember I developed ulcers. And the doctor said to me, this is stress. So for the first time, I was now just deeply aware of just the excruciating pressure of stardom, the excruciating pressure of delivery, the excruciating pressure of being surrounded by a lot of people but feeling alone, and having to face just actual depression. I remember being on the phone with my mom and just crying because our dog died, but she was just like, are you okay? Like, she could tell, like, I was overwhelmed. And I had to perform Vulindlela, and there was a lot of talk about, like, what is she? Yeah. There was a lot of talk about, like, she's not even black. How is she? What is she going to perform for African Week? That was the theme of the weekend. I just remember speaking to God. I was on stage and they were playing my interview on the screens for the audience. And I just said, God, please, can you give me 5 minutes? Because I could barely stand and I could barely eat. I said, please just give me 5 minutes. And I performed the heck out of that song. I had bare feet and all this beautiful, like, Maasai gear on my head. And I just felt like a queen, and I just owned that stage and I owned that space. And for the first time, I was deeply aware of being able to overcome whatever pressures are coming through. And when you're on a stage, how everything can just come together when you're in a good place spiritually. And so it was really great. And eventually, my mom and my dad, they came right before I got eliminated. They got to watch me on stage, and my dad was really, really super proud. And all the girls were like, oh, is this your dad, Amara? Because, he was handsome. And I was like, girl, get off it. Different space, but very important for my growth.
There are stereotypes that say that if you see women climbing up the ladder, it's because they slept with a man, or there's a man begging picking them up.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just help us talk about those stereotypes? Did you go through that?
I mean, look, here's the reality. I think as a woman, you love to love. You can be involved with somebody that you are in a work environment with or a personal environment with. You're going to have a relationship somewhere along the way. It's unfortunate in some regards that you can't help who you love. That's the reality. However, your vagina can't sing on a stage, honey. Your vagina cannot sing on a stage. No matter, you can sleep with who you like. You're still going to have to deliver on that stage when the music starts. And that's the reality of the matter. You know, I think in many regards, there are certain advantages that people have. Your parents might put you through school. You're so blessed. That's your blessing. You might have an aunt who is blessing you and just like, I'm going to cover your transport to get to wherever. You know, there are so many different instruments that people can experience in this lifetime, no matter where you are on your journey. So as a woman, being aware that I still have a gift that I need to nurture and deliver, it won't help you to sleep with anybody for the wrong reasons. Because your talent and your craft and the mastery of that is what shuts everybody up when you're at the business table.
From idols performing there, when did you make your first hit for Zimbabwe to know that they
I remember being 21, 22. I took a gap year and I was like, Mom, I think you've been delivering school fees for long enough. I need to discover my sound. And it took me years actually to figure out just that thing that was going to resonate. I think when I was, you know, conceptualizing Andy Brown Forever, I wanted to work with somebody who was just able to deliver my father's music in a way that was powerful and awesome, but still intrinsically himself, which is when I discovered Ja. And I remember that just being a very organic working experience because he played the mbira, I played the mbira, but he played a different mbira. I played the nyunga nyunga, he played the nare. And so just coming together in that way and just authentically writing about something that I was experiencing because I was in a long distance relationship at the time. I think that's when that aha moment happened where there was no pressure. I wasn't thinking about what is the audience going to think. I was just doing something because I loved my dad and I wanted to contribute in that way, and something magical happened in that moment. So that was the first spark of, oh, she can sing, okay, she can make nice music also. I think that's a something. But the real spark definitely happened in 2016. So that was 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, where everything just sort of came full circle because I had been bearing so many of my family members in the process of trying to be an artist. And something magical happened. Mukoko. Mm-hmm. And I remember pushing the song. I remember we released it, and it there just wasn't enough hype about it. So there was a friend of mine in Joburg that I was with, and I was just like, I don't know what to do about this song. Like, I know it's a good song. And then he says, I've got a couple of Twitter accounts. So what we started doing, he was just like, I'm just going to start making some tweets. We're going to tweet at the radio station. We're going to tweet at the radio station to play this song. And then I started retweeting that. So all these fake accounts were tweeting about Mukoko, and I started retweeting them. And then Zimbabweans started saying, hey, this is a nice song. And then they started making noise about it. And I was just like, okay, great. So when I had to perform at, which awards show was that? I think it was the Zimmer Awards. I was like, I want to perform that song. And I was like, Tyson, we got to do this. John Cole, we got to do this. And all hands were on deck. And we pushed and we pushed and we pushed. And it exploded right through to the music video. It was absolutely incredible. The song that I had recorded with XQ, Bachura, we had recorded that, I want to say, almost 2 years prior to that, actually. Yeah. And XQ was like, I think we should shoot a music video for that. Meet Blacks. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And Ozkid, at the same time, I was recording an advert for a certain company. Ozkid was the person who was engineering, and he was like, hey, I got something for you, man. You need to come and do something with me. And I was like, hey, cool. Why don't you, play me some beats. Let's hear what's happening. And he played me the rhythm for What You Want. And I was like, I want this one. This is the one. Let me go with it. And I think I went on tour to the UK for the first time. I started like touring internationally, and it was absolutely brilliant. And came back, and my sister was just like, "Oh, what are you doing today?" You know, because we were living together now. And I was just like, "I'm going to studio. Do you want to come?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's go." And I was like, "Cool. Well, here's what the song's about." Because I met some guy in the UK that was, you know, he was a bit dodge, you know, it was a bit dodge. He was cute, he was sweet, but, you know, it was a bit dodge. And I was like, I really want to sing about this because it's something that I consistently experience. And so I just had all these hit after hit happen very organically from 2016. So yeah, I don't know about the one moment. I just know about
the collection.
Yeah, the collection.
Before you made a hit, you were singing all along.
Mm-hmm.
What gave you power to keep singing, to keep writing, and to keep releasing songs?
I loved music. I've loved what I've been doing since before I knew it could be a profession. It was my first love. And so when I was given sort of the room, the opportunity, and the inspiration to be who I am, because there was nothing to lose. I had already lost my parents. I had my son. I knew that I wanted to give him whatever I didn't have in this life. I wanted to do better. I wanted to be the best version of me that I could be, because that's who my parents raised me to be authentically you. And I guess the mentality that they instilled in me from a very young age, because when my father was coming up, Ilanga days, etc., he fell in love with my mom, etc., and so she was like the breadwinner when he was broke. So, and you know, so she knew what it was like for an artist to not be seen or appreciated for what they're meant to be. And so the concept of being able to be larger than life, despite whatever your circumstances are, even if it meant that I'm paying my band members and I'm not walking away with much more than $5 today, I knew that next week something will be better, next month something will be better, and at some point something's got to give. And so while I was smiling for the cameras and pushing as much as I possibly could, I was going through so many levels of so many things. But I think something was instilled at a very young age that you will push through, you will make it. And the visualization of that, the manifestation of that, was as real to me now, because even I feel like 2 weeks ago I was in India and I cried. I had a moment because I remembered I remembered talking to my mom about going to India and how we were going to do so much stuff together. And, gosh. And I thought, Mama, I made it. I did it. I did everything I said I would do. And I'm going to continue to do so. It's love. Came from a place of love.
In your songs, you talk mostly about ending gender-based violence. Can you share with us what inspires you to talk about that? Did you go through such moments?
You know, if you'd have asked me this maybe 2 years ago, I'd have a certain answer for you, and now it's more fleshed out because I know myself even better. I think it's part of the great thing about being a woman, your conversations with self, your ability to introspect. I know for a fact when I was very young, I seen a number of things. I seen a number of things I shouldn't have had to see. I saw my mother physically abused at a very young age, and I would say I was verbally abused at a very young age, almost, and also emotionally in certain regards. Sexual abuse also was something that I experienced, even though I wasn't aware of what it was at the time. As an adult, I think it starts to catch up with you. It starts to catch up. You start to look back on certain things that you've seen in your life And the things that I was experiencing in my relationships, I was in a 7-year relationship, on and off, on and off. It was always like some kind of whirlwind. And I remember this one particular day, he came back home drunk, and he was so upset. He was so upset. He was upset at another woman that he was in love with, is what I came to discover. But he was taking it out on me, and he became upset about some bottle of alcohol that I didn't want to open because it was gifted to me from somebody else, an ex-lover of mine, and I wanted to give it away, and he was just losing it. And so he landed up like pulling me, he was dragging me on the floor, like by my arms, because I was just like, I don't want to. It was just so traumatic and horrible. And I was just like, what is happening in my life right now? I promised myself I would never be physically abused. And I think what's common is knowing what physical abuse is, but you don't readily recognize emotional and mental abuse. And I didn't know truly like the extent of the things that I was experiencing. So I want to say I did manage to break out of that relationship. But in the process of that, I had to truly understand, like, why was this normal for me? Like, how did I normalize this? How did I rationalize this? And so in trying to understand myself, I looked back on my story, and I realized that so many women are going through this all the time. And as a society, we've made it like, oh, well, this is marriage and this is what happened. I know, like, part of my pain, knowing like when my mother called her own mother and said, I'm being beaten by Andy, and she's just like, that's marriage. And I realized my grandmother was also abused by her own husband. And so it's like this perpetual cycle of normalizing abuse as some kind of standard practice. And so the concept of when people say, oh, men are trash, men are not trash. Men are people. It's the standards that we hold men to that are trash. And I had to be like, I'm going to do something about this. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write about it, because that's my superpower. That's my superpower. I'm going to pen it. And if the people don't like it, well, so be it. But I need to get this off my chest, and I need to speak to my dad in the spirit and say, I understand and I forgive you. And this hurts. You hurt me in this way, but I forgive you. And starting to work through those emotions. So the music became sort of therapeutic. And something exploded thereafter as well, because this influx of fans were able to just speak honestly, like, I've been in this abusive relationship, marriages, women with children, women without children, just your boyfriend, and just seeing the cycle and the patterns that they're experiencing. And for me, it was so much less about being that Ammara Brown that's going to come and like smile and like uplift the entire building. It was like, I'm your sister, and we've gone through some things, honey, and we're going to work through some things, because that is why I was made. I was made to grow with you guys. I was made to uplift a nation, if not a continent. And so my experience is not just my own, it's for the world to grow from as well and heal from. And I've had an absolutely incredible time doing that with even PSI as well, PSH, just the campaigns that I managed to do even with my protector, almost addressing where the mindset of men comes from. Like, where did they learn that? What is it culturally that we are doing as a society to perpetuate that amongst themselves? What conversations are men having amongst themselves? Why do they think that that's a loving thing to do? And now getting them to express emotion, getting them to express the pressures that they are under to deliver, like men are ATMs. They are not ATMs. We are not ATMs, Achilles. We are not ATMs. And we are not, we're not there to perpetuate the negativity of the things that we've been conditioned into. We're meant to change that as a society, and men are perfectly capable. it's not just a female conversation. We've now discovered that you have to include the men because they have to grow from this. And they have to do better because they teach their sons. They are the examples.
Amara, you have worked with men in collabos, you've worked with Titan, you've worked with Khupe Presser, XQ and the likes. Can you share with us the experience working with them?
Oh man, I'm just gonna cut through to my favorite. XQ, yo man, you my brother, okay? Like, I'm just gonna cut through to my favorite because we have managed to get lightning to strike twice in the same place. I remember when Bachura happened, it was almost like a very, I didn't really know XQ, you know? He was just that guy, XQ, oh, okay, nice to meet you, let's get into studio, and just very chilled, calm, type of person. And now all these years later, I'm like, man, you were just the dopest, because he has been just the most consistently calm individual throughout all the pressures of this industry. He is consistent, he is professional, he is respectful. Anytime XQ calls and he says, sis, we need to go and do GGGG, I'm gonna be like, bro, what time? What time are we doing that? Because he has made the working experience, because it hasn't been perfect. We've had issues from the business end, because you work with people. It's not just the artist, the individual. There's companies around us that can create complications along the way. But through it all, he has remained just so awesome and so true to his word. He has delivered time and time again and just made the creative space a very freeing, liberating place. Shout out to Mushroom Studio. Okay. Love working with Tamuka. He's also been really, really great throughout my career. I met him, I want to say, maybe 2 years prior to Achilles. And I wasn't entirely sure because he wasn't the musician first. He's the producer who knows about the music. And so how he interprets the sound and how he works through stuff, I have just experienced real magic with Tamuka in ways that I never imagined. And so I'm giving huge shout outs to those people, because you will work with people in this industry who believe in you, they see you for your craft, they know what you're about, and they want to propel, they want to grow with you. And I want to say that I just have so much respect and appreciation for men in the industry who are of that mindset. They keep it 100 and they keep it professional and they keep it inspirational. Yeah.
How do you see the industry in Zimbabwe? You started, when you're young and you are where you are today. How would you comment on the industry?
I'm going to say, coming from India right now, I'm going to say our industry is pretty interesting. I remember when I was touring as a teenager with my dad, we would go to a certain place and you get the gate takings. Now we're at a place where I'm not showing up anywhere unless you're paying 60% of the deposit and you pay me balance before I get on the stage. And you will pay for accommodation, you will pay for transport, you will pay for sound, because we're worth it. And so I'm just looking back from just the growth in terms of where we've come from and where we are today. There's still so much that needs to be put in place in terms of the laws, because I'm deeply knowledgeable because I went to college. Hey, shout out to mom, and dad, because he made sure, he was just like, oh, you need to do that. Just understanding that the legislations, everything in terms of law needs to promote how things are run, because you can be an individual trying to push an aesthetic of how business is done and how the industry moves forward, but you can't do it alone. No man is an island, right? And so I'd say we're in a very good growing place, but considering, I am absolutely sure the artist industry would be able to contribute, I want to say 100 times more to the annual GDP, because we are, Zimbabwe in particular, we're some of the most talented people on the continent. And I've traveled enough to know this, truly. So we're growing, there's still more to go. Still a long way to go, we'll get there. as long as we're all on the same page about where are we going. Where are we going?
At the stage where you are today, do you have mentors that you look up to say, one day if you become such and such?
That's a tricky one. I think I mentor others, and in my mind, I have mentors that I've never met. You know what I mean? I pick certain things from certain people. Beyonce being an easy one for me because I've watched her grow. When I was 11, she was, I don't know, 14 or 15 or something like that. And I just understood the trajectory of how hard she's had to push, but I'm in a different environment. And I'm innately aware that the opportunities or the environment is not the same in terms of how it propels or where it grows to. And so I have to be aware, like Karen Mutasa, for instance, I look up to her as a mentor because of the businesswoman that she is. I love just her understanding and a perspective on how to grow and how to get the deal done. You know, I've had to play many a role in my head because in Zimbabwe, we don't have record companies. So you don't have 10,000 people running around trying to push your one album. You have yourself and you have a select amount of individuals that will make money with you joyfully, skillfully, in a dedicated fashion. So I'd have to say it's a collection of people.
Share with us your experience on the most biggest stage that you've performed. What was going through your mind and how did you perform on that?
I don't know what the biggest stage is. Maybe O2 in the UK? No, that one it's one of the more, that's a hard question. That's a hard question. I've done a lot of stages with a lot of pressure. I've performed to a lot of pressure with, you know, I want to say 300-400 people in front of presidents. You know, I've also performed to 10,000 Zimbabweans. You know, so it's very hard to say which one was the grandest, but I will say this. I'm now at a place where I'm learning to smile through the crazy. Because the pressure is very real. It's a lot more real than I think I had ever mentally prepared myself for. And sometimes there's so much happening behind the scenes. You may have had 5 hours of sleep in the past 2 days. Your wardrobe may not be on time. Your makeup artist maybe has shaven half your eyebrow off. You may be in a room full of corporate people who have never seen Amara Brown before and they want to know, you know, can she deliver? There's all kinds of pressure that we're dealing with all the time. You may have a running stomach on that day because your nerves are doing like a yo-yo thing for you. And, you know, you're dealing with all sorts of sound engineers who can't get the sound right. And they're just like, well, see to do. When you're getting, I have dealt with everything and anything. And I just have learned to smile through the crazy. Just count your blessings and keep it moving, babe. And I will say the reality is that the audience and my band, that combination, that's it for me. I just need to see somebody in the audience that is smiling, that is singing word for word, that is just like, you can see they're having the time of their lives. And like, I'm sold in that moment. Like, I'm just like, let's get it. And when I have my band behind me, like, it's I'm an unstoppable force. Like, I could just perform the whole hour just smiling. And even just Tuesday, Women's Day event, super, super awesome. Hundreds of women in the room. But I just remember feeling on top of the world because the room full of women just had so much love and like so much excitement. Like, it just made me want to deliver even more. And that's what makes things golden. I don't think the stage so much. I don't think I've focused on that a lot in my life. It's more so the experience with the people I'm meant to connect with.
Amara, as we close, I want you to address the young Amara, the 14-year-old. What do you wish you had known prior to where you are today?
I'd say to the 14-year-old Amara, you're in for the ride of a lifetime, my darling. All your dreams, absolutely all of them, are going to come true. But it's not about you. It's about your service to the world. And that's the best part that you are going to discover, I guess. Perhaps I was meant to learn that along the way. It's about the human connect. So enjoy the ride, baby girl. You got this.
Amazing. And to other young women who look up to you or inspired by your work, what word would you say to them today? I'll give you an opportunity to look into the camera and talk to them.
Ooh. Learn who you are, because success is not a destination, it's a journey. Everything and anything that you have to deliver in this lifetime is so much more about you understanding yourself and the connection that you are going to have with the world, what you have to contribute. You're much more capable than you think you are, but if you learn to master your mind and manifest, visualize, put in the work, be disciplined, put in the 10,000 hours, you will get to everywhere you want to get to. And no one and nothing, absolutely nothing and no one can stop you. You got it.
Thank you so much, Amara, for joining us on this platform, The Shift, as you were sharing your journey. And I believe that a lot of young women have been inspired by her story. And like she said, no one and nothing can stop you. In this month of March, where we celebrate women and we say gender equality for a better tomorrow, and hashtag we're breaking the barriers. Good afternoon.